Pleasure. Morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. Just to reinforce what Sarah said, this is your session. It's interactive, so whatever you feel most comfortable with. Sarah, just let you know I can't see the chat very well here, so give me a heads up if questions come in.
Yeah, of course. I can read them out to you. We can get that going. That's no problem.
Fabulous. But yeah, so shout as we go. As you know, today we're here just to talk about how to get leads from networking. And we're going to be looking at 3 key areas, and I'll talk to you about what those 3 key areas are in a minute and what those tips are. But it's all about today really working with you to help you define your market dominating position. Love to hear insights as we go, and obviously that there'll be a Q&A right at the end for everybody if you haven't had a chance to ask any questions. So the 3 tips that we're going to be looking at today, as I said, are the market dominating position, your inside reality versus your outside perception, and something we use all the time, which is your conversion equation. So it's love for you all to learn it by the end of it, to be able to use it and just do it moving forward. So before we go any further, I thought it would be really helpful just to connect marketing as a whole and networking. So when we say marketing, what is the actual purpose of marketing? This is a reminder for everybody. It's about helping to facilitate someone who wants to buy from you their decision-making process. Prospects need to know who you are, what you are, and what they're buying. A lot of the time, because we're so close to it, and I hear it when we're all networking the whole time, we need to educate someone as to first, why us, to make ourselves irresistible, and also to give them the pitfalls so that they were aware of it. Like I said, it's all about helping them with the decision-making process. They're always going to have questions, and that's a good thing. You want to be able to help them to address their questions, and that's part of what you can do, need to do when you're networking. So, like I said, your prospects, whether in a networking event or on the phone, they are not experts at what you do. They don't know the relevant issues surrounding what you're trying to sell and therefore how they need to purchase. So you need to help them with that. It also builds trust. It's just like anyone else having a conversation. You wouldn't expect to go up to anyone in the street and say, can you buy this from me, please? Without having that conversation and getting to know them. Networking is just the same. You've got to help them to make the best decision. So, when you're talking to people in the room, they can't tell the difference between what might be the best deal for them and what potentially could be a major mistake for them, because not everything is right for everyone, as we all know. So this is your opportunity to be able to talk about not just the why you, but give them information that's going to give them insights, a bit like we're doing today with your networking. Beautiful sunroom like this. I'm not sure how many of you have bought a sunroom or have any idea of how to buy a sunroom. So the question is, can anyone here tell the difference between a £10,000 sunroom and a £25,000 sunroom just by looking at it? Probably not. So when people are buying from you, just remember, and there's nothing wrong with this, they're going to be clueless just about what you're buying potentially in the why you, just as we're all probably clueless about how to buy a sunroom. Right. With that sort of setting the scene, let's dive into it. Anyone got any questions or observations so far? I can't really see anyone, but do feel free to come off me or ask any questions before we go any further. No? Okay.
No, you're fine.
So, all prospects and customers want the same thing. And that is, they want to feel confident that the money they're spending is money well spent. So again, this is just important when you're networking. People need to be confident that either they're going to approach you because they want to buy your product or buy your service, or they're confident that they know how and who to refer you to. So their decision has got to be made to the best of their ability. And again, just bear that statement in mind, because that's going to be relevant as we go through. People want to get the best deal. It's all about the best deal. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean price. So people instinctively want to make the best decision possible for them. No one likes the feeling that they're having to second best their buying decision because they haven't got all the facts. So I know I'm reinforcing this point, but I'm asking everyone to take the step back and not only just think about the why you, but think about the questions that people will ask you on the buying journey. It's just as relevant when you're standing up and networking. So, as a networker, you have to figure out what's important to your prospects. Before you go into any event, if you can, find out who's going to be at that event. What kind of questions will they ask? If you've been at the same event with someone a number of times, what have they heard from you? Who do they think you are? And again, bear that question in mind. Who do they think you are? Because that'll link to something else that we're going to talk about very soon. You've got to educate them, as we talked about earlier. You know, what is the best deal? What does that mean? Whether it's a product or a service. And then show them how you can actually provide that. And again, that is possible in a networking environment. So all of it must be communicated in a way that they'll pay attention, and also that they will believe in it, and then enable them to take action. We use a strategy that we'll talk about throughout this that really reinforces that and just embeds that. From a sort of a mind perspective, your mind works in the power of 3. So that's why you want to communicate well, get them to pay attention, and get them to believe. The take action is what the results you want them to do it at the end of it. So, as I said, prospects really, really need to be educated by you. They need to make sure that they're comfortable with recommending you or a purchase decision that they might want to make. One thing that we always say, if you're competing on price, everybody, it's your own fault. And the reason why we say that, if you feel that price is the only relevant variable that you're giving your prospects to consider, it's not going to be helpful at all, because you're not going to be memorable. So we've spoken a little bit about the market dominating position, and that again, we'll join that up in a bit. The inside reality versus the outside perception is something that we find a lot when we're networking. There are going to be some words coming up that I'm hoping a lot of you will say, oh my goodness, I say that. And please stop. It's not a bad thing, but it's just about asking you to really think and go deep as to why you. So your inside reality, you could be the best coach here, you could be the best accountant, or run the best engineering company here. But the bottom line is, if you're not talking about it in the right way, your outside perception is going to be very different. What we always say when we're talking to people is talk to your existing clients, talk to people you know that you network on a regular basis. Who do they think you are? That's going to be your outside perception. The whole goal of this is to make sure that your inside reality and your outside perception match up. So what do I mean by that? well, what we find, and before we go into that, is 85% of businesses are inept when it comes to their market dominating position. And because of that, as I just mentioned, that the inside versus the outside is very, very different. So spend time on that. For example, I was talking to a resilience coach this morning that we're going to start working with in January. And actually, she's very good at what she does, but she talks about what she does. She doesn't talk about the outcomes or the insight moments as to why people should use her. So why should people use her? Because actually they don't realize in some instances that they need her. The results she gets is actually phenomenal, both in terms of building confidence and giving people the tools to be able to deal with certain elements of their life. But she's not talking about that. So regardless of how good you are at your inside reality, your prospect isn't going to be able to figure it out unless you really nail that. And I'm sorry to say that you simply appear just to be another business that sells whatever it is that you sell. And we all know what it's like. We go into a lot of networking events now on Zoom, and to be able to really be a bit of a character can help. We also understand that there are a lot of people who are, say, more introverted than other people, and that's okay too. Just by able to be given the data and giving the facts can help. The other thing to bear in mind is by actually, it's how it impacts other people in your business. So for those of you who have a large sales team of, say, 8 to 12 people that are going out, if they don't understand the inside versus the outside, they're not going to be able to sell effectively for you. And what we typically find is if you get that right, you can increase your sales by about threefold. We all know that competition is fierce out there. It's getting tougher all the time. We've got a wave of businesses coming into the marketplace, and also we can now trade on a larger scale, which on some basis is really great, but it also means that we've got even more competition. So I'd ask you all to think about and just take note of how many of your competition you see when you're networking and you're out there right now. If you want to share that, that's great. But please just take a couple of seconds now to write down how many you see or how many are out there when you're networking.
Steve said loads.
Yeah, and that I'd expect quite a few to say that actually. So the thing to remember is when you see loads of competition out there, your potential buyers or people you want to refer, that's how many people they're going to think about. So again, just think about that. It's how you stand out from the crowd or how you make yourself different when you're attempting to reach those decision makers.
Vix commented that it's mixed at different events. So sometimes there's a lot and sometimes there's not any. So it can depend on where you are, I suppose.
It can depend on where you are. If you can get into that comfortable zone with being authentic and not necessarily having a script, but knowing what your key points are, then that really helps. And just towards the end, we'll talk about examples of what some of those key points can be and how we've worked with people to have made that difference for them, just to help pull all of this together.
Mike's also commented that there are some that do similar things, but not exactly the same service. So I guess that comes back to the USP and having that edge. Yeah,
exactly. So for example, in my world, I come across a lot of different accountants who work in different areas. So for example, there are those who are very good at getting grants for small businesses. There are others who have different pieces of software or different processes that they introduce to help with businesses, and some that will specialize in, say, technology sectors, so on and so forth. but I know who they are and what they do because they've defined what makes them different. And, you know, I'm sure we've all been to networking events where we've seen a number of accountants, but they all have, there's all space for them in the room if they can all define the why them very clearly when they introduce themselves. And in fact, some of them all work together quite closely as well.
Yeah.
I normally get my business partner to say this slide, so he's got divine retribution today. And that is, if you want to know why Jane Doe buys what Jane Doe buys, you've got to see the world through Jane Doe's eyes.
Well done.
And I'm not going to say that backwards either. So again, it's all about just to reinforce that when someone buys from you and they've already bought from you, why have they bought from you? What made you so attractive to them in the first place? And what did they see about you that maybe you haven't seen about yourself? So I'd reinforce the fact, go talk to clients who've worked with you for a long time, and even some of your partnerships that you've got in place, because they may be able to shed light on it. We all get very close to what we do. So actually it's very easy to say, this is what I do, rather than this is the why. So I'm going to keep reinforcing this as we go through, just to really help people start thinking about the why. So again, either come off mute. As I said, unfortunately, I can't see the chat. So Sarah, thank you for that. But what about you? What do you think is your outside perception? I'd love to hear what you think it is, and any insights as to what you think your inside versus outside might be.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about that before. It's a very good point.
Hi Sam, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Well, we do posture and sort of exercise advice for home workers. And because we also are DSE kind of workstation qualified, people tend to assume and sometimes that's the kind of the fact we think, they think we're salesmen and we're going to sell them lots of expensive equipment, but we actually, the reality and inside perception we're trying to get more to the outside is the fact we're giving them advice on how to look after themselves, basically.
Yeah, and it's a common thing. The very fact you're giving advice in the first place is absolutely spot on. You're doing the whole bit about helping them to make an informed decision and building that trust. And sometimes it's just about calling it, even if it's not us, here's the things to consider before you buy.
Yeah, so but that's exactly, it's already, we can see there the perception is, we don't actually tell them what equipment they need. We give them exercise advice. We're fitness professionals. And it's more about how they can look after themselves with whatever kit they've got available to them. So that's our battle, because the current market is a lot of sales and lots of selling equipment. We don't do that kind of thing. So we're trying to, that's why we're coming to these things, to learn how to kind of get the outside perception more about what we do, health and fitness, that side of it. Yeah. So it is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And just that whole you mentioned there the very fact you're bringing together these two things, that the health and fitness and the equipment, you're naturally wanting to build that long-term relationship with clients. Yeah, because we find, at least depending on whether you're UK or stateside, on average about 85% of people are leaving a good 90% of leads on the table.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Because it's, we all think about the now clients and the now when we're networking, we're not thinking about what someone wants in the future, and therefore how we can continue to build that pipeline of opportunities that could come through good networking.
Get you. No, that's helpful. Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
This is Richard Ord here. I'm a business consultant in the Cambridge area. I suspect that the outside perception, especially for people like myself that are one man, the product is me and what I do for people, the outside perception is probably stronger than we give ourselves credit for. You're usually more critical, you're your own most critical sort of customer in that sense, and I think that's a continual balance a lot of us might face.
Yeah, it is. And And again, just by talking to good clients and clients you've worked with for a long time, it almost helps take that pressure off you.
Yeah, yeah. You almost get to the point where they know who you are, they know what they're getting, and then you're not in the got to prove yourself every day of the week for a while.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if it helps, Richard, I would get that feedback and just write, as you saw on the screen there, just write yourself a list on the inside and the outside.
Yep.
And also think about what you want it to be.
Yeah, sure. Good.
Yeah. So yeah, was that helpful for everyone? Everyone ready to go on? Fab. Okay, I can see a couple of thumbs. Let's go. So with a lot of these things, you've only got 30 seconds, as we all know, depending on where you are and depending on the conversations you're having, to really get your message out there. You've got to make yourself special, like we've been talking about. There's a lot of jargon. Are we ready for this? Please, please, if anyone's saying this, stop. Stop now. Largest selection, most professional. I'm going to go on for a bit on this one just to prove a point. Here are a couple more. Best service. And the reason why is, what does this mean? What does any of this mean? Best service. Why am I the best service? You're fastest. Why? More honest, I always think that has a reverse impact, actually. All these are pretty meaningless. My all-time favourite, we've been in business for over 20 years. Good for you. Anyway. Any comments on that?
I like the gets the job done right the first time. Well, you'd think, why would you not get it done right the first time? That's why we're paying you for the service.
Exactly.
But yeah, you do. That is a very common sort of phrase that people throw out there, isn't it?
So all those phrases are really common.
Mm.
And as I said, I just ask you to please stop using them.
Yeah, Steve said it's definitely better to tell the customer how you will help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we do a couple of things to try and help people avoid the jargon trap. Some are more friendly than others. So it's the well, I hope so rule. That whole thing a moment ago, you know, we get it right first time. Well, if you're building me a sunroom, I hope you do get it right first time. So it's well, I hope so with your prospects. Okay, so of the highest quality, fairly priced, guaranteed 100% satisfaction. That does not pass the will I hope so test.
That's dangerous, isn't it?
Yes. So again, to my point, would you really hire any builder that didn't provide that as a standard? And again, when you've got a consultancy service, our training is here to change everything. We increase productivity and help you with your profit. Da, 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 da. Well, actually, I would hope so. Which is why I'm saying, go to your, you know, if you're not sure, go to people who've bought from you. And it helps just to avoid that trap. So again, it's just reinforcing what we've been talking about. And again, if you can't get that right and it doesn't pass the well, I hope so, people will naturally revert back to price, and that's not a good thing. We never, ever, ever recommend our clients to lower their prices. In fact, what we typically find is most people say, I haven't changed my prices in about 10 years. Why not?
Mm.
And if it's the only determining factor, it's not very helpful.
Yeah, we've had someone comment that it's about the value you're adding.
Absolutely right. So that value is really, really important. And the value in the eyes of the customer, not your value in your eyes. That's the other thing.
Yeah, reiterating the outside perception, always thinking of what it looks like from the outside.
Absolutely. So bear with me on this and come with me on this journey for the next bit. The second evaluation technique is who else can say that. So as we go through this, stop thinking in terms of who else can do what you do. Think in terms of who else can say what you say. So to Richard's point before about the fact that, you know, he's a coach, there are going to be other coaches there. So that means that there lots of people do what he can do. But not everyone can say what he can say. That's the difference. So whilst anybody and everybody can say what you say, in terms of what he does, they can't. So we did some work a while back with a kitchen designer, had a really, really impressive remodeling company. They were great, lovely team, lovely owners, beautiful products, really, really cared. The inside reality was second to none. But their marketing looked just the same as their competitors. So here's what their marketing said. Nothing different there at all. And again, this is what they were coming across and saying when they were out networking. So again, just think about that. We've looked at some of those phrases that people use. If you're using a lot of jargon, then it means that all of your competitors can say what you say and do what you do. And that's what we want to try and get away from. And here's a nasty one that my business partner always doesn't like me to use, but I love using this one because, again, it really, really hits home, and that's why I like people to do it. It's called the scratch out and write in test, and I'm going to try not to smirk on this one. So I think we've got a minute or so now that we could look at this. So just in your own mind, think about, write a couple of bullet points down about your current networking pitch. Yeah. Okay. Everybody ready? I'm going with Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Now, I'd like you to scratch out your name, and I'd like you to put your most dastardly competitor's name down. Everybody done? How many of you can see yourself or can see that actually what you're saying now is pretty much the same as what your competitor, and it could be you or your competitor?
We've had a comment to say that we spend time researching the customer base and we forget researching our competitors, which is probably what this activity is great for, isn't it? It's reminding yourself who's out there and how different you could be.
Yeah, and I guess in our world, you know, we could call ourselves business coaches. We don't. We call ourselves business breakthrough specialists, and we know what our differentiators are. But it took us time to do that because there's so many people like us out there. So we had to do this on ourselves, and it's not always easy to do. So I appreciate that, but it's one that I just take away and think about, because it's one of the techniques that we always use in ourselves and challenge ourselves on a regular basis.
So we've had a question, Sam, if you don't mind. Judy's asked, how did you change the language for the kitchen company to make it less obvious and more distinctive?
We change it in a way as to what their clients wanted to fulfill. So there was generic things such as to finish off our home, to create a greater family environment was one. Others actually were a little bit more mercenary, which was actually about adding value to our house. But the whole thing was about facilitating more of a family lifestyle. Through building the right kitchen. And a lot of that then came out of that. So the functionality came out of that, because obviously every family wanted something different and they were all bespoke and tailored. But that was the main headline that we went with. And obviously the images, we got them to take more of the images when they were out networking with them, and that reinforced it. And little things like we also got them to do a free report, and they did a mini report on what worked in terms of kitchens and kitchen ideas, and what was good if you're looking for a kitchen for a home that you're looking to stay in for a number of years, versus if you're just looking to do a kitchen up because you want to sell it in a couple of years too. So to really give the end users advice as to why they're building a kitchen and what to consider when they're making their buying choices.
Yeah, I can see that how that will be much more powerful than the standard great satisfaction new cabinets. You know, you can definitely see how giving it that theme is a lot more powerful to the consumer.
Yeah, exactly. And it appeals to both sets of consumers, we found. So they built trust that way, and they also brought some of those to networking events as well that they went to.
Yeah. We've also had a comment from Ewan, who said that now more than ever, the competition for what I do is the independent guys that he's worked with in the past. We're all very similar, and online differentiation is the hardest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ewan, if you're talking about the online networking challenge, yes, it really can be. And forgive me, Ewan, I'm not sure if you're a professional what you do, but again, this next piece will really help you in terms of actually forming that market dominating position. And just for reference, this took us 7 times to define it for us. So this is all about time to change. Your market dominating position really, really defines who you are and what you are. It's your USP. Again, it goes back to that why you. We'll reinforce it in the end, but we had to go through a real journey with us. An example of a journey on a market dominating position I can give you for another client was an estate agent. So the estate agent was standing up at networking events and with in front of high net worth individuals, just saying, I'm an estate agent, I work in your area, I know your stock. Well, that's pretty standard. And actually, when we dug deep, they were much more than that. They had a clever piece of software, and they used their software to make sure that they could guarantee their vendors could sell their houses in 29 days. So their pitch went from, we're estate agents, to we can help our clients sell their houses within 29 days guaranteed, with at the top end. If we don't sell in 29 days, there is no fee. And all of a sudden, it was very different. They became someone that was stood out from the other estate agents in the area, because people could see that they were confident in what they were doing, and they were guaranteeing a service and to get the right prices. So for them, it really worked. So hopefully that really helps define what that market dominating position is. So once we've defined that, it's then about looking at this conversion equation. The conversion equation works in 4 parts. The first bit is all about the interrupting. It's about getting the qualified attention, both from the people in the room that you want to get to and their potential prospects. That will all help to get those all-important referrals, because as we all know, it's one thing to have a networking event, but it's the follow-ups that you do and spending the time with the right people after that that converts to business. I always say that any fool can interrupt, and I mean that with no disrespect. Once you've got your market dominating position really sussed and nailed, and you understand the why you, and you also understand, to a couple of points earlier, what your competition do, then you've interrupted. Once you've interrupted, you really, really need to engage. And that really is all about sharing important information, sharing something that's of value to them to help make the best decision. There's a slight crossover with that in the educate, but the educate is with intent. That's when, using the kitchen fishes analogy, where they produce something that really helped with buying decisions. It also helps with some of those emotional problems. And don't forget, if you've got someone who's an analytic, and again, it's very hard to tell when you're networking, but they will go away and they will have a lot of questions. If you can't answer those questions, you go back to interrupt and you've actually lost that. We call that a false engagement. It's then about the offer. How can you make yourself so irresistible that actually you're then going towards that kind of sales process? And again, in a networking environment, it might well be that will take time. But if someone knows who you do and they can see that opportunity, so for example, we were talking about the furniture stations, etc. If there's someone in the room now that's really interested in that, then actually we now understand that there's someone here today that can help us not only with the furniture, but they've got the qualifications and the understanding about the health and safety and the wellness and everything else behind it. They can help educate us, and we'll probably then have a really great offer around that makes us even more attracted to them. And even if it's not us that they're attracted to, let's not forget, so much of networking is about the referrals that can come in. We always say don't rely 100% on referrals, because how do you know when a referral can come in? But what it will give you is the opportunity to be able to really stand out and be memorable and have that follow-up, because you want to have that follow-up where you can continue to educate and offer, and you're then towards that sort of third and fourth cycle, element, if you like, of the conversion equation. Any questions on that? Does that kind of make sense? Or any insights on that you've got from the conversion equation?
Nothing coming through.
No problem.
I was just going to say then, how do you, the interrupting bit is quite difficult sometimes, especially when you're doing online marketing or emails, and a lot of our stuff is done by emails. And I guess interrupting may be a bit easier if you're kind of face to face or within a group, and you can maybe tap somebody on the shoulder and go for it. But how do you do it online?
In terms of online, once you've got that market dominating position, it then makes it really useful, because you get it down to something that's really impactful and really short. And that's what makes a difference. And therefore then it helps you then define that message and get that headline right. So the headline is all about sort of reinforcing the problem that someone has and doesn't want, with the sub-headline being giving them some of the answers to the problem, to what they need and don't have. So that's
Yeah.
what we always say with a headline.
Okay, yeah.
It's reinforcing that, because at the end of the day, that's what it shows. Empathy. It's showing them what they're trying to get, the answer that they're trying to get to, and they know they're in the right place to get it.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And being authentic as well, rather than you see
Oh
some
yeah,
email headings and they're terrible.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Rich, just on that last slide, Sam, could you expand on the emotional problem comment? I think that's the third bullet point down.
Yes. So, for example, if I'm looking at our world, the emotional problem could be we are investing all of this money on sales and marketing, and we just don't know what's working. We can't see where it is. I'm frustrated with that. So that's the emotional problem here. We're doing all of this and we're just not sure what's working. We've got energy and time going into this. I'm tired. So there's probably a couple of emotional problems within that. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Brilliant. So just to go back to our Jane Doe, if you want to know why Jane Doe buys what Jane Doe buys, you've got to see the world through Jane Doe's eyes. Oh, I wish we hadn't come up with that. Anyway, so again, it's that emotional piece can be really important. So thank you for picking up on that. It's really understanding that. So again, seeing that through your prospect's eyes, being able to sympathize and empathize with that when you're at a networking event, even if it's a brief comment somewhere, can really be helpful. So it's all about understanding as well how Jane Doe's brain thinks and how it processes information and makes decisions. We use three things when we get to this point, and I wanted to cover it over and above the 3 tips because I thought it would really help with your thinking when you're going to go away and put your market dominating position statements in place, and really then look at how it then connects with your inside out and your conversion equation. So everyone's brains will work in 3 ways. You've got your downtime, your uptime, and your reticular activation system. Your downtime is when we see habit. And I'm going to be slightly controversial on this, in that many of us are now going to the same networking events. We see the same people, we hear the same things. So instantly that pitch has gone right over your head because you're into downtime. Oh, it's Sam again. She's saying that again. So it means that every time you need to change it. You need to be able to sort of get their attention, which goes back to that whole interrupt time. So it's almost like a hypnotic state because you're just used to seeing it. We all get in the car and can drive. It's no different if you hear someone's same pitch every time you see them. It forms a habit. Yeah, so let's just reinforce that point. Your uptime. So this is when you've got a state of alertness or active engagement. So that's what you want to get them to. You want to get them to the point that they're alert and engaged. So for example, with what I'm trying to do today, and that's why I've asked people to come off mute, share your screens, talk to me. If you feel comfortable with it, rather than put it in your chat, I'm trying to keep you alert rather than keep you in your downtime when you're just going to call it. You're all there sitting on your keyboard thinking, right, okay, I've done it this hour, because we all do it. It's about managing to keep people engaged so you can keep the brain alert. You want people to consciously notice and take heed of what you're saying. So I know it's a lot of work, guys, but if you can change it every time you're going to a networking event, do. It's just going to help. And it might even be the ask you want. This week I want, this week I need. Keep changing that, even if you find it really hard to actually change the YU piece.
I can imagine that also helps yourself as well, because if you are saying the same thing in the same way over and over, you probably get a little bit less excited each time you're saying it. As you say, the habits then turn into that downtime. So changing it up can also perhaps make yourself subconsciously more elevated and more excited with what you're saying, as well as it being perceived that way as well.
Absolutely, because people can then see the energy that you have. And again, not everyone is an energy bomb like I am. But, you know, when you are talking, you want that authenticity to come across. You want that people say, oh, it's, you know, it's Sarah talking again, it's Richard talking again. I'm going to really listen because, you know, I'm interested in what they say. You want that engagement to come across. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm averaging 7 meetings a day right now. I am exhausted. And sometimes these are really, really long days right now. So
Wow.
we're having to do it ourselves. And trust me, it's not easy. And I know what I'm asking to do isn't easy. But if you can do it, the results will be so much better for you.
Yeah,
And
that's a lot of meetings.
It is a lot of meetings, I tell you. Right, keeps me quiet. My other half's quite pleased late at night, I tell you that. So the reason why this is important, there's this part of your brain that I was telling you about, which is where your reticular activator is. This is the part of your brain. It's going 24/7. It's going even when you're asleep. So it's scanning for things, and it will put things into 3 different categories. And here's why it's important. Things that are familiar, things that are unusual, and things that are problematic. So again, it actually doesn't matter sometimes if you go into the things that are problematic, if you're giving people information that's going to help them to engage and educate, particularly if you've got an analytic who's instantly going to think about lots of questions and want to pick apart what you were saying. It's probably, they're going to go to that problematic bit fairly quickly. Anything that's familiar, that's where you don't want to be. You want them to know you, but you want them to listen. Make sense, everybody? Fab.
Thank you.
So, activators, as I said, are based on unusual things, and that's what creativity is all about, and that's what I'm asking everyone to do. I know we all get tired at times, but it might just be a slight tweak, and it actually might be something that you don't know you've got, but it'll come through the feedback from talking with existing clients. But like I said, once the brain's activated, it's broken out of downtime and into uptime, and that's when you get it engaged. Like I said, this is where you're going to go. Anyone's mind then goes to ask for clarity. It's going to ask for more information. It's going to have a lot more questions. If it finds the answers, it'll become engaged. If not, it's going to go straight back to downtime. So again, think once you've got them engaged, what do you want them to do? Where do you want them to go with that? And these are obviously the hot buttons. But again, that all connects with the why you, the problems that you're trying to address, because you've got the answer to the problems your prospects don't want. So again, just to reinforce, there's some things to think about. Is there anything here that's relevant or important to me? It is a hot button issue for me at this point in my life. So again, even if it's not, when you're networking, suggest who it might be for. So be specific. You know, for example, if you are an accountant and you specialize in the technology space, we know right now that X, Y, and Z funding will be stopping in January 2021. We're looking to help X, Y, and Z customers. People in the room, they might not be the ones that can give you referrals, but you've told them who you're looking for and they might know someone. Don't be afraid to ask, So when you're in those kind of situations, ask someone, does anyone know someone that could require that help? I know it sounds ridiculous, but we forget to ask because we're on this screen now so much. And sometimes just by asking that simple question, you'd be amazed at someone who puts a hand up and says, actually, I know someone who could do with your help. And that's when then the hard work begins after the networking. So just a show of hands, how many people ask for business like that in that way? No, I can't see hands, Sarah. Any?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And just don't be afraid. You're not asking them directly. You're asking them if they know someone for that specific needs. So for that point in time, it might not be that point of that person's life in the room, but chances are they'll know someone outside of the room. So just to reinforce, you need to include all 4 of the components there. So that interrupt, engage, educate, and offer to get the maximum results from your marketing when you're networking, and get into the mindset that actually you are marketing when you're networking. I think it's very easy to forget when we go to the same network week in, week out, we are still marketing, we're still selling ourselves the whole time. It's easy to say, oh, I'm coming here to see a bunch of mates. Well, it's a very expensive meeting if you think that way.
We've had a question. So does that not require that the person you're asking needs to know you well?
Good question. In some instances, yes. And then you've got to define that. So for example, we're working with clients at the moment who are asking for referrals, and they've got referrals, but they're working with people who don't know them. We've asked them to provide case studies and testimonials, and to be able to get their clients available on the line to be able to reinforce that. The second thing that we always recommend on that one is you test something. So both parties will be nervous about referral because you're putting your own reputation on the line with that. Always suggest a test with maybe 1 or 2 of their clients or your clients, depending on how that referral is going. In that way, reputations are saved, because not everything can go well. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
So this is a daycare. It's a daycare centre that my business partner worked on recently. And again, they were talking about things like high quality, attention to detail, and their staff. It was all about them. And even when they were out trying to get business in, either through on the phone or through online networking, nothing was happening. So again, this just reinforces jargon for a completely different sector. So I just wanted to show you different ones today, and a specific example, make people think about it. Again, whilst this is getting closer, they were still in a situation where they were talking about them. It's all about talking to the prospect. And in that particular example, what we actually found out was that people who wanted to use a daycare wanted their children to get to a certain level of education. So that's what they started talking about. That level of education that they offered then made them more attractive, because again, they were talking about what they could offer the children who attended and the reassurance to their parents. So that's what they then focused on. So they spun it around. And in that particular example, very different. It was a broader picture, but just to sort of reinforce some of the results that getting this kind of stuff right can have. They were getting, well, I think they had a couple of leads in a month. When they changed everything, and with the other marketing they did as well, hands up, over and above networking, they had 49 inquiries for 18 positions. So it does work. We also talked about the educate and offer bit. And something that I just wanted to really just reinforce is, what does that mean? And the best way I thought I could do it with us, and that is, we guarantee when we educate and offer, we guarantee we can find any business a minimum of £10,000 of additional revenue in a free 45-minute consultation. That is our education and offer. And again, it took us time to get to that. But I'm asking all of you to think of something similar that could work for you. I've given you the example of the real estate guy, and that worked really well. We've done some others with other sectors at the moment. We're working with a large chain of, we just started to work with a large chain of pubs. Unfortunately, not many people can go in them at the moment, and they're looking to franchise. But we're really going to have to work hard and smart on the why them, you know, beyond local food, beyond good service. And at the moment, the most obvious one is feel free to order from home. We can guarantee that delivery of freshly made produce will be with you within half an hour, even on a Friday night. So we're looking at those kind of guarantees in a certain radius that were relevant for them. So once you educate, think about the offer. I'd love to hear anyone's insights on what's resonated with them in the conversion equation. What challenges do they think they have, or what do they feel they're pushing back on? Because again, it's very easy just calling it to sort of sit here and listen and think, well, I don't agree with that, or I won't be doing that. Let's talk about it and see what the challenges are going to be for you guys.
Have we got anyone?
Hiya. So
Hi, Daniel.
Hiya.
So I'll let Daniel go first.
I was just going to say it's a fascinating insight, actually, because we're an engineering business, and we tend to just say what we've done, and we slightly miss out the. I think we do the how can we solve your problem well when we've got someone in the room, but it's getting the person in the room that we struggle with. And maybe that is because it's all about what we've done rather than how we can solve it, or how we can engage with the client to solve their problem.
Yeah.
So it's not really a question. It's just an observation.
But Daniel, it's a brilliant observation, and that's exactly the point I was hoping. Thank you. I wanted to get people to today, which is maybe thinking slightly differently. So that's spot on. So thank you. That's wonderful.
We've also got oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say that with some of the terminology, it's quite interesting to look at how you explain it. It's quite useful. So things like leads and nurturing and things like that, and educating them is a good sort of thing for us to remember. I think rather than just thinking about it as a sale or about an advert, the marketing process, I think just remembering that you've got to kind of, nurture and educate people really is quite helpful.
And also the whole reason to do it that way, Mike, is it saves a lot of money. Marketing can be really expensive these days. And, in a recent survey, we're all touched by marketing over 3,000 times a day. So it means we're being absolutely bombarded by it. So by thinking differently about things, it can help save money, but it can also really help with revenue in the longer term.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We've had Laura raise a hand if you wanted to share a question or a thought, Laura. Maybe she's not there.
This is Richard here again. I was just going to say that the trigger I've taken from this is to switch the polarity of my language a little bit away from what is it I do, more towards what did my customers achieve as a result of what I do. Made a decision, fixed a business plan, attracted finance. It's switching the language subtly from I do consulting services to this is what my customers have achieved. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's sort of a blend of what you're saying, Richard, spot on, and what Danny was saying. It just It's so powerful. It just shows that empathy. And at the end of the day, a lot of this, when we looked at the conversion equation, is about it is about the emotional side of things. We all have it, but it's about engaging with that in the right way.
So another question I had, coming back to some of your earlier comment, downtime and uptime. How much do you think we subliminally detect that anyway? But also, how do we trigger our own uptime in that dialogue so that we're actually engaged better than we might have been just trotting out the usual verbiage?
So that's a really good question. We don't know how much time we do spend on it, but what we do know is anything that you're in the present. So as I'm presenting here now, all I'm thinking about is the here and now. So I'm thinking about here in my brain.
Yep.
The second we start thinking about something that's a habit, it goes into our subconscious. It's only 5% of our brain will work here, which is our prefrontal cortex. The rest, which is vast, then goes down to subconscious. And then when we're either bored or we're under threat, we think in our limbic state, which is in the back, and we take nothing in. So we want to be, when we're networking and it's our time. And for those of you who are introverts, it's your time to shine. Be proud of who you are and what you do, because you've earned your stripes to get there. No one else can do what you do. And because you're standing up there, if you've been down in an engineering business, Richard, with the coaching business, people aren't paying you for what you're doing now. They're paying you for your expertise, for what you've learned, the qualifications you've got, and the experience you've gained. That's why they're paying you. So stand up and be proud of that when you're networking, and let that passion come through. And as I said, if you're an introvert, bring something along that you feel more comfortable sharing. Yeah, at the moment we can do it all through PowerPoints. When we go back to face, we can give things out. So do it in a way that's comfortable for you, because for some people this is really, really awkward. Does that answer the question, Richard?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I think we're coming up to the well, we've gone a little bit over. We're coming up to the end here. I just wanted to share a comment from Jan to you, Sam, who said, as a young startup with our product not yet available, this has really helped with thinking how we can engage with potential customers and makes us stand out from the start. So thank you. That's a nice comment from Jan there.
Jan, it's an absolute pleasure. And if it helps anyone at all who's in that situation, Monday evenings at 6 o'clock, we do actually do a focus group. My business partner and I run them. We give out free workbooks beforehand, and again it goes into a bit more depth, but it just really helps people to think more and change their thinking and embed that thinking. So you're more than welcome to join that. That's not what the purpose of today is. It's the purpose to really help everyone when they're networking. I know we've been doing it for a few months, but I suspect we'll be doing it for a few more months yet.
Thank you. So did you want to give we've had another question, but if you wanted to give a quick summary of what we've learned, or I think we've covered that in a lot of the questions. We've gone through what we've learned today, which has been really great. We'll just do one more question from L. Higgins, sorry, I'm not sure of your first name. She said, do you have any advice for adapting your pitch for digital networking rather than traditional face-to-face? That could be quite a big topic to cover. Perhaps we could send some follow-up information.
Yeah,
unless you've got
absolutely.
any quick snippets.
The quick snippet to that would be actually whilst we're doing digital and face-to-face, it's still the same thing, but actually really be impactful, time it. Remember, the brain works in the power of 3 key bullet points, if you can, that you feel comfortable with as to why you. I know I'm asking you to change it every time, but it could well be what you're asking for, or the message in the audience you're giving. But that would be my advice.
Lovely, thank you, that's helpful. And Laura's mentioned that her mic didn't work earlier, but she just wanted to say it's been very helpful, so thank you.
Oh, pleasure. I'm glad it's helped. But yeah, so I guess, just to reinforce the 3 tips, I was really conscious today that I wanted to bring the 3 tips together, but I wanted to to go into each area in the why. Your market dominating position, it's all about the why you. I've spoken to you at and with, hopefully until I'm blue in the face on that. Your inside reality versus your outside perception. And I saw lots of light bulb moments from the conversations we had there. So I'm hoping that a lot of you have taken stuff away on that. And that conversion equation, again, is really important with the tone and what you're trying to get out of both your networking from face-to-face and also referrals. So thank you everyone for your time today. I hope it's been helpful to all of you. I've obviously put my contact details there if anyone has any follow-up questions. But the whole purpose of today was to help everyone with their networking and to make sure it's valuable to you and you're getting what you want out of it moving forward.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks so much to you, Sam, for your time today. Definite things we'll be taking away from there, and some really helpful advice. I think the outside perception, inside perception, it really struck a chord with me. I don't really think about things from the outside, so having the jig around and swapping things backwards and forwards will be really helpful. So thank you for that. And as Sam said, that's her contact details there. We'll also send them around to you along with the recording. So if there are any other questions we couldn't get to because we ran out a bit of time there, we can send those on and maybe answer some more questions. So we've had lots of thank yous coming in, Sam, to you. So that's lovely. Thank you for that.
So much, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Oh,
That's
pleasure.
brilliant. Thank you, Sam.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Lovely. So hope you all have a good day, and we'll wrap up there and see you all soon.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much.
Bye.